get us off to a good start and
Yeah.
we will go get
While
this.
she's figuring out, hey, hey, you guys know the deal, man. Welcome to Next Level Live, right? This is our opportunity to drop leadership nuggets. We appreciate you all being on here because here's the thing, it's going to be live. It's going to be all over Dina stuff, and then it's also on the school platform. So once again, you can check us out on the school platform. All of this is absolutely free. And the reason we're doing this is because we want to share leadership nuggets with you, different things to think of, different perspectives. You guys know I say it all the time. The number one leadership blind spot is singular perspective. If the only tool you have in your leadership tool belt is a hammer, well, then everything looks like a nail, and a nail does not, a hammer doesn't fix all the problems. So today, Next Level Live from the slide, from burnout to boundaries. And I'm going to sit here for a second, Dina, if you're okay with that. And I took some notes on this over this last couple of days, and here's what I kind of wrote down. That burnout isn't weakness, okay? Burnout is feedback. And I'm going to say that again. Burnout isn't weakness, it's actually feedback. Most leaders don't crash because they lack capacity. They crash because they ignore the early warning signs of burnout. And this
You
is
mean
something,
like when my car light comes on and I just keep driving?
yeah, exactly. When the car light comes on and you're like, yeah, I'm not sure, the point where like the gas light's on and like it doesn't even show you the miles to empty, but you're
It's
like,
low.
roll the dice, baby. Let's see where we're at, right? Those are the early warning signs that burnout is coming. And here's really what I thought was great. And I'm going to kind of go into something about this. High performers, and you hear me and Dina say high performers all the time because high performers are the ones that are on this call, right? Looking to level up, looking for that ascension, looking for the next mountain, right? The next level. High performers don't fail suddenly, they leak energy quietly. And I'll say that again. High performers, they don't fail suddenly. They leak energy quietly. And I think the best way to describe this, Dina, is I'm not sure if anybody knows this, and maybe it's just because I'm 51, but the boiling frog principle, right? And here's the boiling, Megan's laughing, the
I hate
boiling frog principle, right? And this is what I mean by high performers don't fail suddenly. They leak energy quietly. If you were to drop, and please don't do this.
Don't do this at
Yeah,
home.
don't do this like this. Please don't. This is only do that with the paid professionals. But if you were to drop a frog into a boiling pot of water, it would immediately jump out. It's the trigger to move. But if you were to take that same frog and you were to put him in just regular tap water, regular room temperature water, in that water, and then crank the heat up, as it gradually heated up, he wouldn't jump out. They wouldn't jump out. They would just get used to the heat. Because here's the truth, gradual change is harder to detect than sudden failure. And that's when we talk about burnout boundaries, the frog principle is that gradual change is harder, Dina, to detect than sudden failure. When pressure increases slowly, here's what we do, we adapt instead of responding. And I'm going to say that again. And every single one of you on this call that's listening, that's on the call live right now, you've been there, right? When pressure increases slowly, you just adapt instead of responding. Standards begin to slip, right? Recovery, that necessary recovery that Matt's talking about right now with the doctors and stuff, it disappears. What feels manageable day to day actually becomes unsustainable over time. And so burnout works the same exact way. It doesn't announce itself, it literally accumulates over time, Dina. That's why we got to
Yeah.
have boundaries. It sneaks up on you.
Yeah, I love that, like literally right out of the gate here, it's the result of micro compromises over time. So it's
Yeah.
not the result of a micro compromise, it's the result of micro compromises over a long period of time. So, there's some examples on here are when you say yes, but you really mean no. Whenever you push past like the warning sign, like on the car we talked about, where you're depleted or you're tired or you're whatever, and you're like, I just got to push through this anyway.
Well, the whispers, and I love the way that this slide said it's the body's whispers.
Yeah, and I think that it's easy to look over those things because we I don't know why this is the case, but I feel like a lot of times we have this idea that if we just do enough, we are allowed to rest. Like you almost need permission by pushing yourself too far. And I understand where that comes from. I was the same way when I met Megan, actually. I was on the other, I was, I think, climbing out of this. But the one thing I'll ask you just as a reflection before we move on is two parts. Number one, what have you compromised on recently? that you knew you shouldn't have. You don't have to put it in the chat or any of that. Just write it down. And then the second part is where have you said yes recently, or where have you put something on your calendar recently when you really shouldn't have? Like you actually meant no thank you, but you didn't want to say no, so you just said yes, sure.
Yeah. Or where did you, like I did about 2 weeks ago, say, and I literally made this comment to somebody, yeah, I'll rest when I'm dead.
Yeah, and I think we all say that stuff, but the fact is if you don't rest, you're going to be dead because your body's going to stop you if it needs to. So a lot of times whenever we get sick, it's because our immunities have been worn down so much because of how fast and hard we've ran for so long that even something small will make you ill or take you out, or you'll get like I get headaches a lot whenever I'm doing a little too much. So I think the first thing to really put into your calendar or schedule is some reflection time over the weeks or every month, at least at the minimum every month. Where this month did I say yes and I really meant no? Because in the future, you just say no, or you say, you know what, here's my favorite one. If you are a habitual overcommitter, a yes person, my favorite trick is that you always say, you know what, let me check my calendar and I'll get right back to you. Because really, what we need is just enough space away from the request to get back into ourselves to understand where we want to say yes or no to something. Most of the time, you already know, but you just don't have enough space in between the question and the answer. And so I never say yes or no. I just say, you know what, let me look and I'll get back to you at a time.
What a great way to create a boundary, to have that pause so you
Mhm.
actually go back and reflect and make sure that you're in alignment, right? So
Right.
you don't burn out.
Well, and you're not letting anybody down. You're not saying no. You're not like all those things people are scared to do. You're just saying maybe, but hold on, let me look. What you'll find most often is when you give enough space, you can eloquently say, you know what, I actually don't have time for that this week. How about in 2 weeks? And what happens more often than not is people have already moved on to someone else by the time you say no and you like say you'll come back in 2 weeks. So it's pretty easy.
Well, and I love this next slide, right? We talk about redefining burnout, and when we created this, burnout isn't weakness; it's feedback, like we said earlier. I love this slide because it actually kind of removes a little bit of shame, right? And I'm going to say that it removes shame, right? A lot of us are ashamed if we burn out or that we look at it as a weakness, but burnout, Dina, burnout isn't a character flaw. And a lot of us think it is. It's just information, right? That's what burnout is, not a character flaw. It's just information around it. And what it says on there is most leaders don't crash because they lack capacity. They crash because they've been ignoring the early warning signs for months or even years.
Well, and I'll give you one of my own examples. So actually, I'll give you two. So I never recognized this. This was something that a coach of mine shared with me some years ago. She said something to the tune of, well, you haven't blown it up yet. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she goes, well, we're about 8 weeks since the last time you told me you were going to set fire to this thing. And normally about every 8 to 9 weeks, you try to blow things up and start over. And I'm just surprised. And she like looked at her watch. I'm just surprised we're not there yet. And it brought awareness to me that at least once a quarter, I was feeling the need to just blow everything up, fire everybody, start over. And that wasn't about them or the business, it was about me being tired. And so, what we worked on was setting a calendar that at least once a quarter, I got out of town and went on a vacation or did something for a weekend just to chill out. And so, from that like sidebar comment, I had the awareness that I don't refill my cup with other people. This was another thing that was super helpful. People are one of two ways. They either refill and replenish with others, like they get their energy from other people, or they refill and replenish in solitude. Here's the interesting thing. I am a Megan will know this. You've been around me enough, Chris Ann and May. I'm a solitude person. I need you to leave me alone for me to get back to being like one with the world. My husband is a replenish with people person. And so he and I have had to work through that over the years. Is like for him to get what he needs, we need to go be with people. But for me to get what I need a moment to myself. And so once you figure these things out, you just have to have enough control to actually build your business and your life around your energy cycles.
Well, when you think about it, it says on there, high performers are especially vulnerable because they build their identity around pushing through, around being the person who can handle anything. And here's a lot of the mistakes that leaders make is that when we see these patterns, when we see the feedback, the mistake we make is that we judge it versus listening to it. right? And I'm going to say that like we judge that feedback instead of stopping and just shutting up and pausing and listening to it, we judge it. Ah, yeah, that's something a weak person would say. Yeah, I can push through it a little bit more. When we actually need to stop and listen, but instead we judge it because we start thinking that, well, burnout, it means we're broken. No, it doesn't, right? It doesn't mean you're broken. It just means that
Well,
you're
or
misaligned or you're neglecting recovery.
well, also the other thing that I used to think was that burnout meant something was broken. I
Yeah.
never thought I was broken. And that was because I had too much of an ego to admit that. But what I thought was that something was not working. So when the frustration kind of came up and I started feeling agitated, my initial reaction was to go figure out something that was broken in my business and try to fix it or get rid of it. But the reality was is that there was nothing and no one that was broken. If I had been, it's like the whole chew it over with the Twix thing or the Snickers when you're hungry conversation, right? If I had just chewed it over with the Twix and gone out away for 2 days by myself, I would have probably never had many of the issues that I had while we were building the team. And so the other thing I'll add, and then we'll move on, is burnout actually doesn't mean anything's wrong. It just means that there's something going on inside
There's
of the
something in
person.
the system is off. That's it. You just need a realignment around it.
Yeah, or whatever it is. Maybe you need more sleep. Maybe maybe your nutrients in your body are off. Like it's so weird, you guys. Like there are so many things that your body will throw signals for that have nothing to do with the job you're doing. And it shows up as burnout. It feels like burnout, but all it is just, as Matt said, some sort of feedback loop that you need to pay
Yeah.
attention to.
Well, and you know this, Dina. Go ahead. Take this one away.
Yep. So I'm going to take this slide. So this is what we would identify as the burnout loop. Here's the thing. Every one of you has your own version of this. We're giving you an example, but the goal, like when Liz brought to my attention that I was blowing my life up every 8 weeks, I had to figure out what was the loop and the pattern that was running this cycle. So on your page or whatever you're writing notes on, write down what are the patterns or the pieces of the puzzle that run my burnout loop. Everyone's going to be a little different. So I'm going to go over what the burnout loop concept is, but just know yours will be slightly different than this. And the goal isn't just to hear that this is an idea today, but it's to figure out what your patterns are. So most of you are going to enter this loop because you are really driven. And as it says here, you're passionate, you're ambitious, you realize that you're on a path towards being depleted, but you don't know that you're actually already there. So what the pieces to this are is your drive, your passion, your vision, external pressure, the things that you're doing that are trying to motivate you and energize you are actually causing you to run at a pace that's not sustainable long term.
Oh,
So it's kind of the difference, real quick, Matt, between can I run this pace as a sprint or can I run this pace as a marathon? Most of the time, the way that we start out in our ambition and our drive, when we come up with a new project or start a new year, we come out of the gate just completely sprinting, but we never actually asked ourselves, for how long can I run at this pace? I think many of you could run at that pace for a quarter. You could do like quarterly sprints, but you can't run that fast for the entire year. So things start to get a little wobbly. Matt, do you want to add to this before
well,
you move on?
no, I think yeah, no, you hit it there. The most important thing when you think about the drive, and everyone on here is a high performer, right? And we're fueled by passion, we're fueled by pressure, right? Pressure is a privilege, but the last line, right? Literally, like you're convinced that you can maintain this pace, and you said it
That,
indefinitely. You
yeah.
cannot maintain this pace indefinitely. That's why there's things like we talked about a few weeks ago, the 90-day sprint, right? There's ways to maintain the drive, the pressure, the passion in increments that don't have you actually becoming exhausted.
Yeah, and this is where, I know a lot of people watching us are military affiliated or in that kind of a first responder category. So this is where your training actually kind of does you a disservice.
You mean a break? You mean that I can't just embrace the suck
No.
indefinitely for my
So
entire life with everything I do, Dina? I mean, that's what I do.
I mean, you can, but we could also list out your ailments on here if you'd like. No, we're going to leave that part alone.
Yeah,
Perfect.
we'll leave that part out.
We'll leave that part out. So let's just say you're moving along and you're driving, hard charging, getting it, going after it, whatever. You will start to notice once you start paying attention to yourself that things feel off. But instead of actually stopping, you dissociate.
You judge it.
You disconnect from yourself. Okay. So this is where in military service or with people who've had a lot of trauma, They have learned that they have to disconnect. And this is so, we are going to not get down this bunny trail, but I'm going to say this. There are so many people that we see, and Matt and I have gone through hundreds of interviews with agents over the last few years. And the interesting thing I find from this side of the fence, and I am in this box, so I'm not saying I'm not this person, I am this person. The people who succeed really high levels in real estate, a lot of them are people who came from nothing, people who've had a lot of hell in their lives. They've gone through a lot of trauma. They've gone through a lot. Okay. And without going down the bunny trail, the reason I think that those people are more successful than someone who's had a cush lifestyle is because of the disconnect that happens after their drive wears off. Most people rely on motivation alone to get them through, where people like you and myself, Matt, all of you watching this, if you've gone through hell and back, you understand what it looks like to disconnect and dissociate and put yourself in this box where your feelings don't matter. You shut down. Okay.
I literally disconnect, turn the light switch of emotion off, and I rely
You keep going.
100% on the drive and discipline, right? That I already have the systems. Like I literally just turn it off and go, right? And part of right here, when we think about disconnection for most people, this is where, and I reset and reflection, Dina, it gets deprioritized.
On. Yeah, it's
Yeah, it
on.
gets deep. It no longer the reset and reflection gets deprioritized because I'm able to just disconnect from it and lean back into the drive that I had.
Yeah, and Megan, I know you have your hand up. Just remember this is being live streamed, so if you ask this question, it's going to be going out to everybody. Do you want to ask your question or do it at the end?
It wasn't necessarily a question, but just
Okay.
a perspective from the disconnection aspect.
If you're okay doing it, I just want to remind you this is being live streamed on Facebook. So
Yeah,
whatever
no,
you're going
it's
to say.
okay. So I actually met a guy who was in the military who he helped his dad every morning at 3 a.m. at the bakery and then would go to school. That was
Mhm.
his life. And so he would run these insane distances. And we're like, you know, how do you make, like, how are you able to do it? And he's like, well, I'm just used to pushing through when I'm tired. I grew up
Yeah.
helping my dad at the bakery when he was a kid and then going to school and then succeeding there and then doing football after school. So he learned at a very young age that disconnection of ignoring the body's need for rest, which I think is a, yeah.
Yeah, that's literally exactly like what we're talking about. And some people, um, I think the goal here isn't that you don't do that because I believe that if that's part of your being, that it's hard to not dissociate and disconnect. The first goal is to acknowledge that you're doing it, like to
Well, it's
even
to
know.
recognize. You have
Yeah,
to. Yeah,
yeah,
it's so we're talking about you can disconnect, and there's times where you need to disconnect, but
yeah.
you have to be aware. Awareness is transformational, right? In your health and wealth and all that, you have to recognize it, and it has to be a priority.
Well, and you've got to notice like when am I dissociating not only from my need for rest, but from everyone else. I have never figured out for myself how to only dissociate from one part. You know, like back whenever I was going to therapy pretty heavily after my dad died, my therapist shared with me, she's like, I want you to realize you can't selectively turn off your emotions. You either turn them all off or they are all on, which is why people feel so like just kind of crazy without using the wrong term whenever they start doing medications that help their gates come back open. It's like a floodgates of emotion. It's either all on or all off. You can't selectively dissociate. So just remember, you may start noticing it where you're dissociating from your family more than your work. So it may be you're dissociating from rest more than one other thing. So just the goal here is when you're at that tipping point where you're starting to recognize that I'm disconnecting, you don't have to stop it, but the more you could recognize you're doing it, the shorter periods of time you will be disconnected, and then you can replenish yourself and go back to drive. With not doing that and not recognizing that you're disconnected, you end up in complete depletion. You start going, your battery is starting to get drained here. This is where you can't focus on anything. You're feeling like you're tired all the time, you're sick all the time. This is where a lot of people actually will get sick often. Like they'll find themselves actually with ailments they don't normally have. Everything feels overwhelming. I don't know where to start. This is where people start to say, I have so many things to do and I don't even know where I'm supposed to start with any of this. It's because they aren't connected with what their purpose is. They're not connected with their drive. They're not clear anymore. It's like someone smeared shit on their windshield. You can't see out of it because there's just so much stuff there that it's hard to unpile yourself.
Well, and you said it right there. This is where your purpose, right? You lack consistency right now because you don't have the purpose. But this is also a lot of us out there that are high performers. You know when you've hit depletion, when your patience really starts to fade. Now, some of us don't have patience anyways, but that little bit of patience you have, it really starts to fade because you are actually depleted. You don't have anything left in your give a shit tank.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is that most of us believe that if we just push through that for long enough, that we'll end up back in drive, but you don't. If you continue to push through that long enough, you end up in complete detachment, which, we're not going to get into this since this is live stream, but, that's where Matt and I were at the beginning of this past year was like, I hate this. I don't like this industry. I want out of this. Like, I don't understand why things have to be this way. It's the cynicism, right? As you see on the slide. And if we had just taken a moment to take a step back and like just taking care of ourselves and really gotten more connected with our purpose, we probably wouldn't have felt that way. And we would have been back in drive because now that we've done that, we are back in drive. Like we're actually back in hyperdrive and it feels really good to be feeling that way again. But if you are depleted, this is why I'm so glad that you said what you said at the beginning, Matt Neal. But if you're so depleted that you're just pushing, 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 you're pushing through just to become more cynical.
That's it.
What you're pushing toward is not rejuvenation. Like it's not on the other side.
Well, and I love what it says at the top. The very first sentence, you resent what you once loved. And absolutely, you can keep pushing and pushing. And I want you to think of it like this. This is a perpetual cycle, right? This loop is a perpetual cycle. Drive, disconnection, depletion, detachment. And you can push through detachment and get back to drive, but you're in the same perpetual cycle of burnout. This loop does not get broken if you continue to push through each one of them.
Well, here's what actually happens, and I see this, I have seen this in myself, and Chrisanne will laugh and May will laugh at this, but most of the time, if you push through at detachment, Matt, you don't push through to drive in your current cycle. You push through and you find drive in finding an entirely different thing to do.
Oh, you mean like burn the boats? So when you push through detachment, we go back to burn the boats and find a new drive?
Well, you want to start a new project, get into a new industry, have a new job, build a different team, blow this up and start something different. So when you push through detachment and you end up back in drive, it's this idea that you're building something else that makes you excited. So you're not finding your drive in what made you money to begin with, where we started. The drive is because now you've got a new wild harebrained idea and like, I'm going to go sell this other product over here, or I'm going to go be a lender, or I'm going to get out of the industry altogether and go open a coffee shop. So you get excited about something else, but here's what you don't realize. You did not create coping skills through the drive cycle, and you're going to end up back in the same place owning a coffee shop. Well, because you didn't create those like break states.
And here's the thing that, we'll stick with this last thing before we move slides. When you think about one of the most important things about the burnout loop is this, and we've already said it in the previous slides and in the last, few minutes. Burnout feels sudden. It absolutely does. But when you look at drive, disconnection, depletion, detachment, there was warning signs in every one of these that you ignored. And I'm going to say that again. Burnout always feels sudden, but if you look at the burnout loop, there was a sign, there was a signal, there was something telling you, a feeling that you're there. You just chose to judge it, avoid it, ignore it, instead of actually becoming aware and identifying it and doing something about it.
Well, speaking of doing something about it, like it's just you and I on this call right now having this conversation. So for us, drive was all of 2023. Yeah. 2023, we were in the drive state. 2024, we were 100% in disconnected, disassociated, like this can't be, blah, 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 blah. Then 2025, we hit here at the first half of the year. And instead of going into detachment, because we were aware of this, right here where this little line is, where the little, we decided to do something.
That was the break state.
That was the break state. Like if we don't do something radical to get back into drive, we are going to detach, which we started to. Like, actually, I think we did kind of make it into
Yeah.
detachment and brought ourselves back a little bit. But if you don't, if right here you don't do something radical, you are the thing at stake. Like, you as a human being start to become someone that you're not. And that's, as hard as it was for us to do what we did, and as hard as it was for people to like accept that what we did. We did it because we were at the tail end of like fully being like, chuck up the deuces. I'm going to go to law school. Matt was going to go be a contractor. I need the exit button because this ain't working. Like, so just remember that somewhere between depletion and detachment, you are still in control. Once you get into detachment, you're into this place where it's really, really, really hard to come out
It's
of.
hard to break out of detachment. It's hard to break out of detachment because you are so disconnected and so depleted, and you are so far away from your drive. That's why we say, you guys know I drop bumper stickers, right? When your purpose grows, your consistency grows. Man, purpose is in the drive, but somewhere that purpose faded, the consistency faded, you disconnected, you depleted, and you go into detachment. And when you're there, it's hard to break free.
Yeah, so what we're going to ask you guys to do, and then we'll move on, is to identify how would you know you were in each state. So take a screenshot of this if you want to, but if I were in disconnection, what does your body do when you're disconnected? Because what mine does and what Matt's does is different. So what does your body do, or how do you know you're in each one of these? I think it would be the best thing that you could do for yourself because we're all going to go through this cycle. But the question is, are you aware of where you are in the cycle?
Yeah.
And are you aware of how to get back out of it?
Can I make a fast enough assessment to adapt, to be agile, do something different?
Yeah, for sure. All right, Matt, this one's
Yeah.
yours.
So here's the thing, I love the way this starts out, right? It's not too much work. It's too much of the wrong work, right? And you guys have heard me say this a million times, right? There is no such thing as burnout when you're doing enough of the things you love or enough of the right work, right? And I'm going to drop something, and I'm going to talk about something you guys hear me say all the time, right? My give a shit, right? And I'm going to say it. I have, and all of us have, a gas tank, right? When we talk about misalignment over work, right? The right amount of work, doing the things that I love, right, to do, right, with my purpose and all that, it fills my gas, my GAS tank, which is my give a shit tank, right? I've got to be powered up by my give a shit tank, my gas tank, right? And so misalignment is what drains that tank. It's not overwork. It's not the work that I'm doing. It's the wrong work. It's doing the wrong thing that drains your actual your gas tank. It's what leaves you feeling depleted. And it kind of happens in three different ways. And I love the way we broke it down here. The motion trap, right? High performers confuse motion with meaning, right? That means we're out there, right? We're pushing through burnout, and we're
People
making.
say people say I'm putting in the reps, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
I'm doing the reps, like I'm doing the work. Like, I don't understand. I showed up for 6 hours and did these things. Yeah. But you're confusing motion with meaning, right? Which is just driving you deeper into disconnection and depletion, right? It feels productive, but is it actually aligned with the things that bring you joy? And I'm going to say it again. Is it aligned with the thing that fills your give a shit tank? Well, after the motion trap, Dina, you have the awareness gap, right? And I love what it says here. Most leaders
before we,
go ahead.
real quick, I want to add something on the motion trap. I also don't want you guys to sit here and think that we're telling you you're always going to be aligned in every moment of your
You're
day.
not.
You're always going to be loving your life every second of the day. You're not. But the question is, where's the balance? Like, are you spending 75% of your time in stuff you don't like to do and only 25% in things you do? So before you move into awareness, I just don't want anyone to misunderstand what we're saying here.
Yeah. And the motion trap is this too. Like, literally, it's hard to balance, and it's hard to counterbalance like this. There's a time, like you said, you've got to align and have alignment with doing something and be okay with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, literally pouring into one thing, leaning into it, right? And so it's not just about motion, it's about the actual meaning, the alignment around it, right? And then you have the awareness gap, right? Most leaders can tell you exactly what their business needs, right? This is the best sentence. But ask them what they need and they go blank. Like, you can, and Matt Neal is smiling because you know the deal. Like, literally, we teach people what we most need to learn. And so literally, like, man, what does your business need? Man, my business needs this, my business needs that. This team member needs this. I need this team member to do that. I need to coach this person here. What do you need? Oh, I'm good, man. I'm good. No, no issue. What do you mean? No issue. I'm good. What are you even? Do you have self awareness of actually where you are at? Do you have self leadership and knowing what fills you up and knowing what drains you? We are so great as high performers at knowing what everybody else needs, but 99.999% of the time, we've not done a good enough assessment. We've not listened. And so we are absolutely unaware of what we actually need to fill our tank, right? I mean, here I am, Dina, you talk about, I'm 51 years old. And I've just now realized that, man, I need to get naked in nature. And I don't mean like naked in nature, but I need solitude. I need to be just quiet out there in the wilderness, on the trail with my dog to really fill myself back up, right? So the motion trap, then we have the awareness gap that most leaders have, right? And then we have the alignment solution. When your work aligns with your values, strengths, and energy rhythms, you can sustain high performance without burnout. Are you living in congruence with the things that fill your heart, fill your soul, right? That fill you up, that fill your energy? Are you living in congruence, or are you so far out of line that you just have no idea what the solution is, right? You have to know how to work with the things that actually sustain you. That's the solution.
Yeah, and I'll add this, and I'm by no means trying to be a contrarian, but I think this will be a contrarian statement. Every single person, when they come into real estate specifically, is given this prescription of what they should do and when they should do it, and at what hours we have to do this. Well, first and foremost, you're a self-employed entrepreneur. There's not a best time for everyone on the planet to do something. The reason I bring this up in this box is because every person, like literally every human, has a different energy clock. Like everybody's body is made up differently. And we're not going to get into that. But like for you, you may do your best, highest level thinking in the 7 to 10 p.m. space. I am not even awake by 10 p.m. Like I am asleep at like 9. So if I were to say that like you have to make these calls or do these things at this time every day, I don't buy into that anymore. I did at one point, so if I've ever taught you that way, I did believe that at the time. But now the more that I've gotten into like learning outside of the prescription, I fully embrace the idea that every human being has a different clock internally that they're working off of, that you're going to be more energetic at certain times of the day, and there are patterns. You're going to be slightly less energetic at certain times of day, and there are patterns. For me, I hit a wall every day at about 2 o'clock. If you catch me from like 8 a.m. to 10, I am on fire for the Lord, as they say. Sometime around the middle of the day, I'm like, oh my gosh, is the day over with yet? And then sometime at 2, if I'm not gotten something to do, I'm chilling with some Epsom salt in the bathtub for
Yeah.
30 minutes to just hang out, get myself together. I get back out and I get back to work. But if you're not aware of what your own energy rhythms are, you're going to feel like you're putting in the reps and doing the right thing, but you're doing it at the wrong time for you. So just
Well, we
remember
talk,
that this is all kind of plays into
yeah,
this.
well, work that conflicts with your values, right, will leave you
Yeah.
depleted. But it's the same thing. Work that conflicts with your
Yeah.
energy level, right? And I'll leave that with this. For so many years, and I'll rely back on the military. Man, we had this band of excellence. We knew the band of excellence when the best time to train was, that felt the energy. And so, are you doing that in your business? The same thing when we talk about the solution. Do you know when the best time of energy? Me, 3:45 in the morning. I'm at my absolute best when I get up from 3:45 to 5. Most people think it's
Not even
crazy.
awake.
That's me.
Nope, not even awake. All right, so the goal, like we've said, is not to eradicate burnout, not to eradicate any of these things. You're never going to. As a human who is like on fire for something and you're building something and you really enjoy growth, you're always going to have some level of burnout. There's no getting rid of it. The goal is just to figure out what your signs are and insert something before the burnout sign. So
Yeah.
in my example of every 8 weeks I blow my life up, every 7 weeks Dina needs to be leaving, like to go somewhere because my 8th week is about to happen. The goal is not to be cleaning it up after the fact. The ultimate win here, you guys, is to acknowledge what your warning signals are and put something in right before that happens. So, some things that you could look at, are you more irritable or shorter with patience? That's me. Apparently, sometime around the middle of November and all of December, this is Dina. Apparently, I have been made aware of that this year. Are you losing joy or excitement in activities that you once loved? Inability to switch off mentally, even during downtime. I think almost everybody deals with that. I don't know that that's really necessarily a warning sign you'll be able to get around, but that's just me. Physical symptoms like headaches, digestive issues, sleep disruption, these are something you'll only notice if you're paying a lot of attention, but that's okay. Procrastination on important tasks while staying busy on trivial ones to make yourself feel good. Feeling emotionally numb or disconnected. Matt, you
Yeah.
want to take that one since I said last week?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. So burnout looks like collapse, right? It looks like irritation, mental noise, loss of joy,
Yeah.
creativity dropping. And here's the thing about high performers. The reason that we don't spot it is because it feels normal, right? When you're that person that embraces the suck and pushes through, we don't spot it because that feels normal. That's what we've done in the past, right? The last one, like you said, feeling emotionally numb or disconnected from your purpose. Man, when you are literally burnt out, you lose that feeling of joy. You lose the excitement, right? We talk about motivation, right? We lose that emotion around it. And when we do, we lose our purpose. And when we lose our purpose, man, we lose consistency in everything else we do. And you'll notice when you become numb or disconnected, your consistency goes right along with it. You can look at your calendar and you'll be able to tell you're disconnected when the things that were super important to be on your calendar, you're no longer putting them on there because you're just disconnected from them. You've moved away from your purpose.
I want to add one thing just as a sidebar. If you've lived in fight or flight for so long, like many of you have, because I've had personal conversations with many of you, your nervous system isn't going to notice the last one because your nervous system as a whole is turned off. Like
Yeah,
it's not firing the way it
the
should.
switch is off.
See, the switch is off.
Mhm.
So if you're looking at this last one and you're like, oh shit, I always feel numb and disconnected, that's me. I always feel numb and disconnected. I have, shared with many people that because I've lived in fight or flight and trauma for so many years and I've just like shut it all down to handle all that stuff, my default mode, no matter if I still love my work or not, is numb and disconnection. So just know that if that one's your norm all the time, there's nothing wrong with you, but you may want to look at doing some nervous system work to calm your nervous system back down to normal baseline, like a normal person's baseline. And then when you all of a sudden get numb or disconnected, you'll notice it. But right now, most of you aren't going to notice that one. And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong or broken. It just means that you've lived this way for so long that that's become your baseline. So just know that. Now we're looking at the last couple of things here. We're going to go quick on these because we wanted to spend most of the time with helping you recognize it. So at this point, let's say that you do recognize these things and you guys go home today and you write them down. What you're looking for are how do I redefine the standards and the boundaries that I have around these things, whatever the signs are that you come up with. And I want to remind you all of something. I shared this with one of you over the week. Boundaries are not about other people. So I think that society has taught us boundaries the wrong way.
Yeah.
Boundaries are about you.
Yeah.
So if you talk about boundaries and you bring another person into the conversation, what you're actually talking about are expectations of others, and we are not discussing that here. So when we talk about building boundaries, we're talking about the rules for yourself.
Well, and I
No,
love what you said because here's the thing, and I think, and I'll hammer it again. Boundaries are not about keeping people out, right? Remember that. Boundaries are not about keeping people out. They're about keeping you in alignment, right? That's what,
kind of like
it's
you
not
said.
about keeping somebody else out. It's about keeping you in alignment.
Yeah, I want to share this visual because I think it helps. So when you think about a fenced-in backyard, most of you are in real estate, so you'll understand this. The people who would tell you that the fence is to keep people out are expectations people. They're people who have a lot of expectations of others. When you ask someone, what's the reason you want a fence? And they say, I want to protect everything in my house. Those are boundaries people. So if you're protecting what's in your house, in your body, and the wall is up, that's to keep what you love inside and not let it leak out. If the wall is out, that's expectation management. Those are two very different things. I think we need both, but I want to make sure we're all on the same page. If your fence around your house is facing outward, your expectations, and you need to learn to turn it in and make sure that that's to keep what needs to be in inside so it doesn't get out. Okay, so anyway, let's talk about this. So boundaries aren't walls, they're wisdom. I think we've hit on that one. I think it's important. The truth is exactly the opposite of what most people think. Boundaries are not like these rigid things. Boundaries are how you protect your own energy, so the rules you create for yourself. Now, you first have to like figure out what they are, create the rules, but then you're going to say, okay, and this is the other half of the example I shared. My boundary is this. In order for you to cross into my backyard, here are the rules I have for me and the rules I have for you. If you violate my boundary, you are removed from my backyard. That's the easiest way I can explain this to everybody. You don't only have boundaries for yourself. You should have boundaries for yourself, which create rules for everyone else based on your boundaries. If you stand on this side of the fence, we're cool. But the moment you cross into my boundary, you are getting removed. I'm not adjusting my boundary. I'm not working nights or weekends for anyone. That's my own personal boundary. If you are trying to ask me to go out for nights and weekends and I choose to violate my own boundary, that's not your fault. That's my fault. Everybody hopefully understands this. Boundaries create freedom for yourself, but they also create freedom emotionally for you to understand how you interact with the world. So if somebody asks you something that is truly a hard line in the sand for you, the answers are easy. The answer is just no.
Yeah.
Doesn't work for me. Sorry. So the idea of a boundary is really not that scary. It's the whole thing around like, can I create clarity on what I need in order to feel whole within myself? So Matt's going to share with you a routine that you guys can go through if you want to, that creates a little bit of a blueprint where you can kind of work through some of these things to make sure you don't get burned out.
And I think the most important thing to think about when we talk about burnout, we talk about loop and all those different things, is that recovery, and I'm going to say this, and I please write it down, remember it. Recovery isn't optional; it's operational, right? And I know I talk a lot of tactics like that, but recovery is not optional; it's operational, right? If you don't schedule your rest, your body will eventually schedule it for you, right? And you may not like the way it schedules it. I'm just going to be honest, right?
Yeah.
You have to do it, right? And so here is when we talk about the recovery routine, when we built this out, we talked about a couple different things, right? So we talked about the daily micro reset, right? This is the 5 to 10 minute between tasks, right? That's that break. Dina, actually, me and her about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, we took a look at my schedule and I had to start creating 15-minute and 30-minute energy breaks, the little micro resets in my day to keep myself aligned, right? And it may be something like, go ahead, Dina.
Well, and this is how like I share everyone's different. Matt needs them after every 45 minutes to an hour. I don't physically need them, but maybe for every 3 hours of a thing. I can run for about 3 hours before I start feeling some sort of way. In order for Matt to be aligned, Matt needs them every 45 minutes to an hour.
Well, and here's the reason behind
Different.
that. And here's the reason I recognize that, right? And the reason
Yeah.
I recognize I'm 95% D, okay? But in what I do, I'm an I all the time in what I do. I will be dead at the end of the day. I will be exhausted. I need the 15-minute, 10-minute breaks just to repower myself back up, to show back up in the way that I actually need to. And so these tiny pauses, I like to go in the backyard. And like I said, I like to get naked in nature. Not really, but I'll go sit out there in the fake grass, in my backyard with my dog or whatever. So I need the micro resets. The other one is you have your weekly recharge blocks, right? Your 3 to 4 hours of protected time for input, not output, right? So this is where you read something related to work. Like there's an agent that's always on the calls all the time. And she just said, you know what, for the next 45 days, 60 days, I am not reading anything about my business, about life. I'm just going to read fiction. I'm just going to read some crazy dragon, whatever it is, fiction, right? Because yeah, it's about input. It's not about output. So reading something unrelated to work, take a long walk, engage in a hobby, all those different things, right? The third one is your monthly reset days, right? So one full unplugged day per month. And here's the thing, my friends. I'm giving you permission to take a knee, just not two, right? This is where you actually take a knee. You actually take a knee and recharge just one day a month. No email, no Slack, no work conversations. Spend it however you want. Obviously, make sure it's good with if you have a relationship or whatever you're going to do, but spend it however you want, right? Like, don't
I don't know where you were going with that.
Well,
But
I'm just saying, don't be like Dustin and be like, hey, Dina, what's up? Hey, I'm going golfing for the day. Deuces. And you're like, okay.
well, that's
right?
fine. I don't care.
Yeah, spend that day. I know Dustin golfs, right? So spend that day, right? Here's the thing that it says, right? This creates space for nervous systems to fully, right, down regulate, to literally come down, right? So it's a day. You have the little 5 to 10 minute breaks to create energy. You have the weekly recharges to sustain the energy, but every once in a while, once a month, take a knee to fully reset. And then the last one, quarterly retreats, right? Reflection and realignment before burnout hits. Take a day or a weekend to step back and assess, right? What's working, what needs to change, what boundaries need strengthening. Because here's the thing, the highest performers in the world, they are always doing an assessment. Good, bad, ugly, they're always assessing. So you want to assess like what boundaries need strengthening, which ones don't, right? It prevents you from running the same pattern. We talked about the loop just being a perpetual cycle. That quarterly retreat allows you to find, because if you're in that loop, you can break out in a quarter and reset, but you gotta have this small recovery routine. And if you look at your calendar, right, when you're off this call and you take a look at your calendar, do you have micro resets? Dina needs one, I need 3 or 4. Do you have a weekly recharge block where it's just 3 to 4 hours that you're doing something for input, not output?
Matt's 5 hour haircuts.
That's
Yeah.
it. And that's exactly it. Like Dina knows that on Friday, Matt Bougie on
From
Friday,
10 to 12:30,
yeah,
Matt's sitting in a barber
I'm
chair.
sitting in a barber chair, getting my beard done and my hair done. That's my one vice. That's what I'm doing. But man, it's all about input, listening to the barber shop. Like that's all I'm doing, right? Do you have a monthly reset day? I'm giving you permission to take a knee. Just don't take two. And then are you actually doing quarterly retreats, right? It goes back to something we taught a few weeks ago, Dina, the 90-day sprint. Man, let's sprint for 12 weeks and let's do a week of reset, vacation, re-energize,
Well,
redo all those things.
I think something that should also be a non-negotiable, and I don't should very often, is that quarterly resets, you need to be out of town and out of reach for just running and doing something in your business. Because if
Yeah.
you try to take those at home, you're never going to hold that boundary for a long, I mean, that's hard. So I would highly suggest that on those quarterly retreats that you actually leave and get far enough away that you can't just real quick run down the road and take care of something. So let's talk about like how do you actually design your routine? So as we talked about the 4 things you should put in there, I'm going to suggest that you get a big ass calendar, whether it's the branded one or whether it's just a regular calendar. Because when you look, and I'm looking at mine right now, like when I look up there, orange is like there's these little stickers, okay? The orange stickers, yeah, there you go. So the orange stickers on mine are opportunities for breaks based on my family's off time. Weston on spring break, Dustin on leave. I put my family's off time in orange because I know that that's when we're going somewhere. Do I know where we're going yet? April 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th? No. But do I know that Weston's out of school and on spring break and it says leave the house on that block? Yes. So I will eventually put something in there. But here's my suggestion. Take it from the concept that we just talked about, put it on a calendar, put your days that you're off, mark it off on your schedule for the rest of the year. Schedule your half days on Fridays because that's what I do too. So I do a half day on Friday for personal care. I'll go get a massage or I'll go get a facial or I'll do something like that. Or, however you would prefer to do it. You don't have to do Fridays. You could do whatever day makes more sense for you. And then just go ahead and take this whole thing. Just stick it on the wall somewhere. Put it in your schedule. Go ahead and book the plane tickets to wherever you want to go. We're not telling you have to have it all figured out, but we are telling you that when you go from creating boundaries and putting these things in your life, you're going to have more balance.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Your calendar is a confession, and when you do these things on your calendar, like the big ass calendar, like you're saying, here's the biggest thing. People, I love you, man. I love you. I care about you, or else I wouldn't be on this call. You don't need but here's the truth. You do not need a vacation from your life.
Yeah.
You need a system that sustains it. And I'm going to say that again. You don't need a vacation from your life. You need a system that sustains it, that keeps you full, that establishes the boundaries, that has you assess, that keeps the energy going so you can break through from the loop when it happens, because it will happen. Not if, it will happen.
Yeah. There's no way that you can be a high performer and constantly wanting more for your life and not have this happen. It's just not possible. So we're going to make sure we get you out of here on time. Give us 1 more minute. Burnout is the constant output. The boundary is the bridge. So the boundaries around my personal time, my weekly hour, my whatever we just taught you. And then the other thing to remember is balance is not a destination. There's never a moment in your life where everything's going to be balanced and it stays that way. Balance is active. It's the like if you think about two plates, right? Like the muscles in your arms are activated while you're trying to hold those plates up. This is the same thing. So you're just going to rinse and repeat
Yeah.
this cycle for the rest of your life. Just make this part of what you do, and you won't have anything that you have to recover from. So as we talk about this, we're going through we've already taken you through the structure. Matt's taking you through the recovery structure. And what we're going to ask you to do is in the next week, put all of this stuff on a calendar and make sure that you do something for
Yeah.
yourself.
You
Give yourself
can't.
an audit and put it on there.
Yeah. And here's the thing: you cannot skip rest and expect to rise. Right? We talked about that. You cannot skip rest and expect to rise, to go to the next level, to ascend the next mountain. It's not gonna happen.
Well, and the reflection prompt on the bottom of this is, I think, where the key is to get started. What boundary would change everything if you actually honored it? Mine was taking a half day off on Fridays. I started that process when Weston was 18 months old because I was losing it. I was alone. I was in a new house. My husband was deployed. I was with a toddler and I hated kids before I had one. Like, I was losing myself. And so the only way to keep myself afloat on a weekly basis was to put half days on Fridays for me.
And,
And
yeah. I
then
think. Go ahead.
that would have been no, that would have been my answer to that prompt at
Yeah.
that time. So
And,
just
and,
figure out what that is.
And I think it's important if there's one thing on there and it says, remember, setting a boundary feels uncomfortable at first because you're changing a pattern. Here's the thing, right? Discomfort doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It just means you're actually changing.
Yeah, it just means you're actually doing it. So,
Yeah. And
right. How do you want to close this out? We're running a little over.
yeah,
Sorry.
I know, man. We ran over because sometimes, man, we just jump into these calls, right? And there's just so much to cover in this short period of time. But here's the
Yeah.
thing, my friends, like literally, man, burnout is real, right? It's depletion. It's depletion of your give a shit tank. It's not doing too much work. It's doing the wrong work that's not aligned, right? Fill your gas tank, right? Your give a shit tank. Rest so that you can rise. Break the burnout loop. Understand the signs. Don't avoid them. Don't judge them. Listen to your body. Listen to your mind. That
I
is it.
never thought I'd hear you say listen to your body,
That's
but
it. Listen to your body. Listen to your mind, right? We will see you all next time. Bye.
see ya.